Throughout all of human history, mankind has gazed upward toward the cosmos and contemplated an unrelenting, enigmatic question. A question that burns as brightly as the stars which shimmer throughout the night sky. Are we alone in this vast and seemingly endless dark that is our universe? Is there anyone else out there? Some would say the chances are unlikely, and others would be quick to suggest the opposite. Indeed, some would go so far as to say that life not only exists in the far reaches of outer space, but it has also visited us here on Earth. And if the story in this case is true, it's still here with us today.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Insomnia. I'm your host, Adrian Ladelia, and let's get right into it. While it's been speculated by many that extraterrestrials have contacted us in the ancient past, arguably the most infamous and more recent case of UFO-related activity comes to us from July of 1947 in none other than Roswell, New Mexico. If you're unfamiliar with the Roswell UFO incident, allegedly a disc-shaped object had crashed into the desert near a local ranch, which was promptly covered up by the United States government. So the story goes. Whether or not a UFO had truly crashed, or if it was just a weather balloon, is up for debate. But regardless, it had spurred public interest in the UFO phenomena, and in many cases was the catalyst for a mild form of mass hysteria that followed. See, the public wasn't too comfortable knowing that there could quite literally be alien activity being conducted on U.S. soil, with the government being seemingly helpless to act or even detect it. This resulted in the United States Air Force conducting a series of official investigations into the UFO phenomena from 1948 to 1970, known as Project Sign, Project Grudge, and the most known of them all, Project Blue Book. The findings of these investigations were interesting enough on their own in that they had more or less concluded that while unidentified flying objects most certainly exist, there is little in the way of evidence to suggest that they are a threat to national security or are actually of extraterrestrial origin. Nevertheless, today we're discussing a case of UFO-related activity that not only challenged these findings, but some say could change the course of human history. We're talking about the Black Knight satellite, a dark and mysterious object in a polar orbit of our planet, broadcasting a strange signal. Our story begins in December of 1899 in Colorado Springs. Nikola Tesla, the Serbian-American inventor and futurist, had told of strange signals he detected in his station for experimenting with wireless power transmission. He remarked that the signals seemed odd yet calculated. Indeed, he believed them to be transmissions from another world. Nothing else had become of these odd signals until various ham radio operators began intercepting something similar throughout the world. Again, the story seemingly went nowhere, as there wasn't much to make of the strange broadcasts. That is until the summer of 1947, with the events of the Roswell UFO incident. As we discussed, public and government interest in the phenomena drew many eyes upward towards the night sky, and it was then that several people had noticed a strange red light moving at high speeds and in a polar orbit, no less. The 1950s would see the rise of the Cold War, and in 1954, a former U.S. Marine and writer, Donald Keyhoe, would tell local newspaper outlets of UFO activity being tracked by the government. This activity seemed to correspond with the same unidentified red light that had been previously reported, predating the launch of the Soviet satellite Sputnik 1 by 3 years. In fact, the launch of Sputnik in general had caused a whole new level of mass hysteria, as everyone was concerned that the Russians could easily be spying on us, or worse. Many reports say that when the satellite was visible or being tracked, there was an ominous, shadowy object following closely behind. The strange red light also continued periodically. The mystery deepened even further when in 1960 the US Navy was able to track the movement of an unknown object in space, again in a polar orbit. It should be noted that polar orbits were achieved in 1960 with the launching of the TIROS satellites, and are primarily used for mapping, reconnaissance, and surveillance, but before this, they simply weren't possible. Initially, the object was thought to be the wreckage of a failed rocket launch, but was ruled out due to the fact that they knew exactly where the wreckage was and where it had drifted. The sheer size of the object was also an area of perplexity, as reports said it measured roughly around 20 feet and possibly weighed up to 10 tons. Immediately after, the Air Force Space Surveillance System, or Space Fence, was established in 1961, which was a multi-static radar system designed to detect orbital objects over America. One of the most interesting cases of eyewitness accounts comes to us from none other than astronaut Gordon Cooper, the first man to sleep in space. In May of 1963, during a routine mission, he had noticed a flashing green light moving at high speed past his spacecraft. He immediately radioed it to the nearest tracking station, the Mukia tracking station in Australia, which was able to corroborate his report, as they too had tracked an unidentified object on radar simultaneously. While this case may be astonishing enough on its own, the next instance of activity would be ultimately unprecedented. In the year 1973, a Scottish author and researcher, Duncan Lunan, had looked at the strange signals that had been documented throughout the beginning of the century, and he began trying to make sense of them. Following Tesla's idea that these could very well be intelligent broadcasts, he attempted many methods to try to decipher them, and began to compose a graph detailing the pulse sequences with the intermittent delays between them.
At first, the points on the graph seemed random. But upon closer inspection, they revealed a pattern. A detailed map of the constellation Boötes, the herdsman, as it would have appeared 13,000 years ago. But the details went further. Supposedly they revealed a further message, a sequenced code when translated read,
"Find us. Find us. If you are hearing this, start here. We are here. The binary star you call Epsilon. We are the 6th planet of 7. If you're hearing this, please find us."
Our story doesn't stop there, however. In 1998, the shuttle orbiter Endeavour began mission STS-88, America's first step toward building the International Space Station, when they encountered a dark object floating in a low orbit above the Earth. Initially, they concluded it to be a thermal blanket lost during a routine EVA mission, or simply just space debris, but this was the first time we were given photographic evidence. After that, there hasn't been much mention of the Black Knight satellite or its whereabouts. Where did it come from? Who could have sent it? There are so many questions that are left unanswered, though some say it is still up there, slowly orbiting around our planet, waiting for us to finally hear its message and respond. To this day, many still posit that the stories are all just misattributed reports of various real-world phenomena. For example, some say it was all simply misidentified normal satellites. Some say it was all just space debris. And others say it was secret government technology, but the fact still remains that something caught the attention of world governments and people alike, and many say that if it has waited this long, some 13,000 years, it can wait a little bit longer. I'm your host, Adrian Ladelia, and this is Insomnia.